start again. My name is Kelsang Ani. I'm the resident teacher at the Kadampa Meditation Centre in East Fremantle, and I'd like to thank you for inviting me to come along this evening. It's always a delight to have the opportunity to talk to you here. So for our meditation this evening, I thought that we could do a special breathing meditation that is explained in this little book, the New Meditation Handbook, by my teacher, Geshe Kelsang Ani. And this breathing meditation is quite special. So I'll just a little bit explain and then we can do it together. He says, generally the purpose of breathing meditation is to calm the mind and reduce distractions before engaging in a practical meditation. So a simple breathing meditation helps us to do this. But the meditation that we're going to do performs many other functions. It helps us to improve our motivation, to develop a good heart and a controlled mind, and to increase our energy for practicing Dhamma. It also is a special method for ripening our Buddha seeds, our potential to become an enlightened being. So in this meditation, what we do is we combine our breathing with the recitation of a mantra. So the mantra is Om, Ah, Hum. So maybe you're familiar with this mantra. Om, Ah, Hum. Quite short, simple. Om, Ah, Hum. And this mantra is called the mantra of all the Buddhas. So this mantra, when we recite it with faith, enables us to receive the blessings of all the Buddhas and receive the blessings of all the Buddhas' body, speech and mind. So I'm sure you all know, Buddha is someone who is free from faults, who has only good qualities. So when we recite this mantra, it causes us to begin to develop the same qualities as enlightened beings. Particularly the qualities of a Buddha's body, speech and mind. So the mind of a Buddha is the highest level of mental development, and this short meditation helps us, if we do it regularly, to draw closer to the attainment of enlightenment. So the way that we do this meditation is quite simple. We sit, breathe naturally and normally, preferably through our nose if we're able, and just allow ourselves to settle into a comfortable breathing rhythm. So once our mind settles a little, we can then modify our breathing so that we hold our breath very briefly at the base of the in-breath. Yeah? So we breathe in, we hold briefly at the heart centre, and then we breathe out. Breathe in, hold at the heart centre, and breathe out like this. So it's a slightly different breathing rhythm to our normal rhythm. Once we've established that breathing rhythm, we can then combine that with mentally reciting this mantra. So as we breathe in, we recite Om. As we hold at the heart, we recite Ah. And as we breathe out, Hum. Okay, so Om, Ah, Hum, like this. And we feel as we do this, as we recite Om, that we receive the blessings of the body, of all the Buddhas. It purifies our negativity of body and causes our body to become blessed. When we recite Ah, then this purifies all the negativities of our speech, and our speech becomes blessed. And as we breathe out and recite Hung, then this causes us to develop qualities of a Buddha's mind, to eliminate the negativities of our mind. So it's very beautiful, very blessed meditation. This meditation produces many good results. It calms our mind and causes our distracting conceptions to subside. It strengthens the life-supporting wind at our heart, thereby increasing our lifespan and protecting us from premature death. It causes our Buddha seeds to ripen. Now, through this meditation, we can develop a good heart and a controlled mind. If we do this meditation regularly, we shall find that our mind gradually becomes more positive and more controlled. It will become like a well-trained horse that does whatever the rider wishes. As our mind becomes more controlled, we shall find it easier and easier to refrain from negative actions of body, speech and mind, and to practice virtue. We shall experience peace and happiness day and night, in life after life, and be able to share the benefits of this experience with others. So this is helping us to understand some of the benefits that we'll receive from engaging in this meditation. So we can do the meditation together. I'll guide it as we go along. Hopefully we can all remember the mantra, Om, Ah, Hum, nice and short. So if you'd like to settle yourself into a comfortable posture, we can check that our back is straight but not tense. Allow our hands to rest comfortably in our laps, our eyes cast down. So we can begin by generating a wish to use the meditation to develop good qualities, to benefit both ourselves and others. Hold this wish for a moment. Now we can turn our attention inwards and become aware of our breathing. Breathing gently and naturally through our nostrils if we're able. And we follow the process of inhalation and exhalation with our mind. Resist the temptation to follow any thoughts that might arise. Keep your attention focused on your breath. gradually adjust the rhythm of our breathing so that we hold our breath briefly and gently between the inhalation and exhalation. Hold the breath briefly at your heart center, the very center of your chest. We hold only briefly without straining and gently settle into a new breathing rhythm. Breathing in, holding briefly at the heart center, breathing out. Breathing in, holding briefly at the heart center, breathing out. So stay with this new rhythm till it begins to feel comfortable and relaxed. So we continue breathing in this way till our mind becomes free of distractions and all we're aware of is our breath, entering, remaining and leaving. Now, as we breathe in, we mentally recite the mantra Om and imagine that the energy of the mantra, the nature of enlightened body, mixes with our breath. Imagine this pure mantra energy mixing with our breath, dissolves away all the impurities of our body, and our body becomes completely pure. As we hold our breath at the heart center, we mentally recite the mantra Ah, and imagine that the energy of the mantra, the nature of enlightened speech, mixes with our breath. We imagine this pure mantra energy mixed with our breath dissolves away all the impurities of our speech speech becomes completely pure. Then as we breathe out, we mentally recite the mantra Om, and imagine that the energy of the mantra, the nature of enlightened mind, mixes with our breath. We imagine that this pure mantra energy, mixed with our breath, dissolves away all the impurities of our mind, and our mind becomes completely pure. Continue in this way, mixing the in-breath with the mantra Om, the held breath with the mantra Ah, and the out-breath with the mantra Om. Enlightened body, speech and mind. Concentrate on the feeling of inner peace and purity that the mantra evokes. Allow your mind to mix and become one with this feeling. can now recall our wish to use this meditation to develop good qualities to benefit both ourselves and others, and mentally dedicate the positive energy of this meditation to that end. Finally, we can make a determination to keep this inner peace when we rise from meditation, so that it influences everything we think, say and do. And then we can relax our concentration and begin to emerge from the meditation. So, if we do this very blessed meditation regularly, many benefits will come. Our mind will be more controlled. We'll find it easier to refrain from negative actions of body, speech and mind, and practice virtue. And we'll experience peace day and night. So hopefully we feel encouraged to do this meditation. All right, so I understand that you have a bit of a theme happening for these talks, which is looking at our stories or our journeys. So I thought this evening we could share the most wonderful journey that we can all make in this life, a journey to enlightenment. So this journey we can make through following the path to enlightenment, the path of Lamrim. So I'm going to talk about Lamrim this evening, which is the path to enlightenment. So all of us have the potential to become an enlightened being, to become just like Buddha. Every one of us has this opportunity, this potential. You know, if we purify obstacles in our mind, if we accumulate merit or good karma, receive many blessings from enlightened beings, and practice all the stages of the path that Buddha taught, then every one of us can become just like Buddha in this life. Now, this is possible for us, and this path is available for us. So this path we call, in our tradition, we call Kadam Lamrim. So this path is the path to enlightenment, and it's an inner path. a mental path, a path of developing and improving our mind. It's a path that leads us to complete freedom from suffering, pure and everlasting happiness. This is the state of enlightenment. So inner paths are minds, ways of thinking that take us places. And we're familiar with outer paths, aren't we? They go places too, but we can see where they go. With inner paths, we can't see where those paths lead, but due to Buddha's kindness, we can understand. So there are many inner paths and mental pathways, paths in our mind. Some we're very familiar with, others not so. So the path to enlightenment is a path that's unfamiliar to us. It's a path taking us somewhere that we have not yet been. And we have many other mental paths that are very familiar. For example, a path to anger. We know that one very well, don't we? Quickly, our mind can become angry. The pathway in our mind to anger is very well trodden. Also, paths leading to jealousy, perhaps also well traversed pathways in our mind, very familiar to us. But the path to enlightenment, a state of lasting inner peace and happiness, freedom from all suffering and problems, a mental state that is the enlightened state, that pathway we're not so familiar with. So we can learn how to guide ourselves along this inner path, this mental path to enlightenment. And this is why Buddha appeared in our world, actually, to guide us along this path. So Buddha's teachings are said to be scientific methods to improve our human qualities and nature by developing the capacity of our mind. Buddha taught us how to improve our mind, how to develop our mind. So we're very interested in outer development, aren't we? In recent times, we have witnessed remarkable material development in our world. And, many amazing things have been invented, but we have not witnessed a corresponding increase in human happiness. There is no less suffering in the world today and no fewer problems as a result of outer development, material development, technological development. If we check, probably we will see that there's actually more problems, greater dangers than there ever were before. So this shows us that the cause of happiness and the solution to our problems do not lie in knowledge of material things. It's guiding us to that understanding. Happiness and suffering are states of mind. So their main causes also must be within our own mind. If we want to be truly happy and free from suffering, what we need to do is learn to control our mind, to guide our mind along paths to happiness and mental pathways to happiness, away from mental pathways to misery, like pathway to anger, for example. So, when things go wrong in our lives, when we encounter difficult situations, we tend to regard the situation itself as our problem, don't we? In reality, though, whatever problems we experience come from the side of our mind, come from inside our mind. And if we were to respond to difficult situations with a positive or peaceful mind, those situations would not be problems for us. No, problems arise only when we respond to difficulties with a negative state of mind. So we need to check, is this true? Check in our own experience. If difficult stuff happens, we have a positive mind, a peaceful mind. Inwardly, we don't have a problem. We only have a problem if we respond to difficulties with a negative state of mind. So if we want to be free from problems, we need to transform our mind from negative to positive. Then we'll free ourselves from the inner problems of our unhappiness, our negative responses to the things that happen. And the Buddha taught that the mind has the power to create all pleasant and unpleasant objects. The world is the result of the karma or actions of the beings who inhabit it. Pure world is the result of pure actions. Impure world, result of impure actions. And since all actions are created by mind, ultimately everything, including the world itself, is created by mind. And so normally we say, I created such and such, he created such and such, this kind of thing. But the actual creator of everything is the mind. Everything is an imputation by mind. So at the moment we're like servants to our mind. Whenever it wants to do something, we have to do it without any choice. If our mind says, say something hurtful to that person, we just do it, don't we? If our mind says, eat that cake, we eat the cake. We're like under the control of our mind. So since beginningless time, this has been our situation. We've been under the control of our mind without any freedom. But if we practice Buddha's teachings, if we practice the path to enlightenment, particularly Lam Rim, then we can gain control over our mind. And we can reverse the situation and gain control over our mind, look forward to real freedom. So, we may study many Buddhist texts, become a renowned scholar, but if we don't put Buddha's teachings into practice, then our understanding of Buddhism will remain hollow, with no power to solve our own or others' problems. And if we expect intellectual understanding of Buddhist texts alone to cure our problems, we're like a sick person who hopes to be cured of his illness by merely reading medical instructions without actually taking the medicine. No. So we know, don't we, if we want to be cured, we need to take the medicine. So with Buddha's teachings, we need not only to understand them, but put them into practice. The Buddhist master Shantideva said, we need to put Buddha's teachings, the Dhamma, into practice, because nothing can be accomplished just by reading words. A sick man will never be cured of his illness through merely reading medical instructions. So Buddha's teachings are intended to be practical. Practical advice for us to apply in our lives. Not just interesting stuff to know. Knowing stuff isn't going to transform our mind in positive ways. But if we put Buddha's teachings into practice, try to effect the inner transformations that he guides us to, then everything will change, everything will improve in our lives. So all of us have a deep wish to be free from suffering and problems permanently, don't we? We'd all like that. And normally we try to accomplish this by using external methods. We try to, be successful, become wealthy, keep ourselves fit, eat the right things, these kind of things. So no matter how material, no matter how successful we are from a worldly point of view, no, it doesn't matter how materially wealthy, powerful or respected we become, we will never find permanent freedom from suffering and problems. In reality, all the problems we experience, all the suffering we experience, arise from our self-cherishing and self-grasping. These are misconceptions in our mind that exaggerate our own importance. But because we don't understand this, we normally blame others for our problems, which just makes them worse. So from these two basic misconceptions, self-cherishing and self-grasping, arise all our other problems, all our other delusions, our anger, our attachment and so forth, causing us endless problems. So Buddha teaches us where our problems come from, where they really come from. And he teaches us where our happiness comes from. He explains that happiness and suffering are states of mind. Now, our happiness comes not from external things, but from having a peaceful, positive mind. This is the main cause of happiness. And we know this, actually, if we think about it. Many people have amassed many what we call contributory causes of happiness, great wealth, resources, and so on. But lack the main cause of happiness, inner peace. And so they're not happy. Whereas other people have a peaceful mind and have very little materially. But because of that inner peace, they're happy. So main cause of happiness is inside, inner peace. And also the main cause of our problems is inside our mind. Particularly our delusions, our negative states of mind. At the very root of those are self-cherishing and self-grasping, like the distortions in our mind that exaggerate our sense of self-importance. From those basic misconceptions, all our other problems arise. So Buddha teaches us where our sufferings actually come from. So in modern Buddhism, Venerable Geshe Kelsang Gyatso explains that all our suffering comes from our self-grasping ignorance. Now, ignorance about the way things exist. We don't presently understand how things exist. We think that things exist in the way that they appear, which is a mistake. Everything exists simply as an appearance to mind. So because we don't understand the way things actually exist, we grasp at ourself, other things existing independently out there. And from that basic misconception, all our other delusions arise. So this self-grasping ignorance is like a fundamental ignorance that we have in our mind. And without relying upon Buddha's teachings, we can't recognize this ignorance. Without putting Buddha's teachings into practice, particularly his teachings on emptiness, we can't abandon this ignorance and release ourselves from suffering, the main source of suffering in our mind. So through Buddha's teachings, we can identify this ignorance in our mind, reduce it, and eventually abandon it. And when this happens, we shall experience the supreme, permanent peace of mind known as nirvana, permanent liberation from suffering, which is our deepest wish and the real meaning of human life. So this is the main purpose of Buddha's teachings. Buddha's teachings are methods to free us from suffering permanently, to enable us to develop perfect inner peace, peace of mind. So Buddha attained enlightenment with the sole intention of leading living beings, leading us along the path to enlightenment. So probably all of you know the story of Buddha, but Buddha was a prince initially, and although he had, many luxuries, all the enjoyments of princely life, he realized that none of them could protect him from the sufferings of birth, sickness, aging and death. And so he left the palace and embarked on a spiritual journey, abandoned his princely life, and over a period of years progressed along the spiritual path to enlightenment. He attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree and then was requested by the gods, Brahma and Indra, to teach. Now, they realized that living beings experience so many problems, so many sufferings, and Buddha understood how to eliminate those. So they requested him, please teach us how to accomplish what you've accomplished. So then, fortunately for all of us, Buddha began to teach. And during his lifetime, he gave 84,000 teachings. A lot of teachings that he gave. And as he taught according to the dispositions, like to the needs of the people that he was talking to. He didn't sort of start and say, you start here and then go here. The presentation that he gave wasn't entirely systematic. He taught according to the needs of the people he was addressing. So, of course, Buddha's teachings flourished in India and throughout Asia, eventually reaching Tibet. And many people attained realizations. Some years later, many years later, in Tibet, the Buddha Dharma had degenerated, and an Indian Buddhist master called Utisha was eventually invited to Tibet to restore the purity of Dharma. And it was Utisha who gathered together all of Buddha's teachings and presented them in a systematic way, which we call Lamrim. So he wrote a text which was called Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And he wrote this text and gave teachings in response to a request from the king of Tibet at the time to give simple teachings that the Tibetan people could practice easily in the context of their life, so that they knew where to begin, how to enter, how to make progress along, and how to complete the path to enlightenment. So this teachings called Lamrim, Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, then flourished. And it's this presentation of Buddha's teachings that we, in the tradition that I practice in, follow. So we call it Kadam Lamrim. So Kadam means all of Buddha's teachings. Ka means all of Buddha's teachings. And Dam is according to Utisha's special presentation. So systematic presentation. How to begin, how to make progress on, how to complete the path to enlightenment. This is what means Kadam Lamrim. So Utisha gathered together all of Buddha's teachings, all his 84,000 teachings, all the teachings of sutra, the teachings of Tantra. And he showed how to practice all of them together. You know, in the past there had been much confusion. There was some seeming contradictions, particularly between the teachings of Sutra and Tantra. And Atisha, through his great skill and wisdom, explained clearly how to practice Sutra and Tantra together. And he presented Sutra and Tantra in this Lamrim presentation. So all of Buddha's teachings, both Sutra and Tantra, are included in the Lamrim instructions. There is not a single teaching of Buddha that's not included in the Kadam Lamrim. So when we listen to the entire Lamrim, we're listening to all of Buddha's teachings. When we practice Lamrim, then we are practicing all of Buddha's teachings. It's like the condensation of Buddha's teachings, very practical, suitable for everybody. So everybody, Buddhist and non-Buddhist, needs permanent liberation from suffering. Don't they? Everybody wishes for this. Everyone wishes for pure and everlasting happiness. Buddhist and non-Buddhist, we all have this wish. This wish can be fulfilled through Lamrim practice. Now, by entering, making progress on, and completing this path to enlightenment. So Lamrim is a practical presentation of meditations that lead us from where we are now to the experience of pure and everlasting happiness, freedom from all suffering. The Lamrim presentation guides us step by step through the paths of Sutra and Tantra that Buddha taught. And if we follow the Lamrim presentation, we can accomplish enlightenment in this life. So who wouldn't want to do that if we have the opportunity? We all want to be free from suffering. You know, death doesn't end suffering. Suffering only ends when delusions end, when the causes of suffering inside our mind end. So Lamrim of Sutra and Tantra guides us to that freedom from suffering in this life. So Lamrim is a series of meditations leading us step by step through all the mental stations, if you like, that we need to pass through between where we are now and the destination of becoming an enlightened person. It's like there's these mental understandings that we need, like mental steps that we need to take, which are the path to enlightenment, guiding us from where we are now, in our present confused, deluded state, unhappy state, to a state of pure and everlasting happiness. So this presentation of Lamrim fits very well with daily life. We don't need to change anything externally. All we're changing is our mind. And many of the conclusions that Lamrim guides us to, in fact, are conclusions that we may already come to. Things that we know, at least in our head. So what we discover, though, through Lamrim meditations is that many of our habitual ways of thinking and our unexamined assumptions contradict the knowledge that we have. So through Lamrim meditations, we resolve these contradictions. So, for example, we may know that happiness and suffering are states of mind. Yeah? We all know that. Happiness and suffering are states of mind. We know that in our head. So where do we turn to when we want to be happy? Where do we turn when we want to be free from suffering? Do we turn inwards to our mind? Or do we look in the fridge? I think many of us look in the fridge, don't we? We want a little pick-me-up. We want to be happy. We don't think, what I need to be happy is peace of mind, inner peace. We think, I need chocolate. So although we know in our head happiness and suffering are states of mind, in our heart we have a different idea. Yeah? So through Lamrim meditations we resolve these contradictions. We come to understand that happiness and suffering are states of mind. Now through meditating on the truth of suffering, we gradually stop seeking freedom from suffering where it can't be found, in the fridge or anywhere else outside of our mind. We start seeking it where it can be found, inside. You know, we also, for example, know that death is certain, don't we? Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. We know we may die today, actually. And yet, how do we live our life? We don't live our life with an awareness of death, do we? And we live our life as though we're not going to die, not for a very long time. So, in Joyful Path of Good Fortune, which is an extensive Lamrim text, Venerable Geshe explains, it is one thing to know something is true on the level of information, and quite another to have personal experience of its truth. Everyone knows that the time of death is uncertain, but how many people live their lives in such a way that they never act or think with the assumption, I will not die today? Most of us spend most of our time thinking and acting as if we're not going to die. Consequently, when death strikes, we react with shock, distress or anger, as if something unheard of and unnatural were happening. So we have so many times these understandings that we know to be true in our head. Like we know, I may die today. But in our heart, we think, no, I won't. In our heart, we assume I won't die today. And so as a consequence of that, we live our life as though, death is a long way off. And when death strikes, now when anyone dies actually, we usually react with shock, don't we? Like something unnatural is happening. And yet the only certainty we have in life is death. If we were to meditate on death, come to realize, I will definitely die. The time of my death is uncertain. I may die today. That awareness of death, when we have it in our heart, will solve so many problems in this life. Most of the things we worry about, we'll stop worrying about. The disagreements we have with people, we'll think, you know what? It's really not worth it. We'll appreciate every day of our life. Every day will be joyful when we have an awareness of death in our heart, not in our head. So our assumption is in our heart, I will not die today. Even though, if we think about it, we know that we don't know that to be true. So what the Lamrim meditations do is they resolve these contradictions. Yeah. They help us take the understanding, the correct understanding that we have in our head, like, I may die today, and allow that understanding to gradually grow in our heart, so that our days, our life, is guided by that understanding. So Lamrim meditations present a many-sided challenge to all our mistaken habits of mind. You know, our habit thinking, I will not die today, is mistaken. Through Lamrim meditation, we challenge that mistaken view. We undermine it, and we replace it with a correct view, a correct understanding in our heart. I may die today. That understanding then informs our life in so many positive, meaningful ways. So all the Lamrim meditations function like this. And with all of these meditations, it's much more important to gain actual experience of them than just to learn the various points, just to know the instructions. You know, knowledge is an essential prerequisite, of course, for being able to do the meditations, but knowledge alone doesn't change our life. Now, what we need is experience. We need experience in our heart. And knowing in our heart, like deeply. For example, I may die today. Knowing deeply in our heart, happiness, suffering are states of mind. If I want to be happy, if I want to be free from suffering, I need to change my mind. But we need that knowledge in our heart, not in our head. So knowledge without experience doesn't enable us to control our mind. We can't gain realizations unless we put our knowledge into practice, gain experience of this knowledge through meditation, particularly through Lamrim meditation. So as practitioners of Kadam Lamrim, these stages of the path to enlightenment, as Kadampas, I'm a Kadampa. So a Kadampa is a person. Pa means person. Ka, Dam, Pa. So a person who practices all of Buddha's teachings according to Atisha's special presentation, this systematic presentation that we call Lamrim, by training in these Lamrim meditations, we gradually transform our mind into the stages of the path to enlightenment. So when we meditate according to Lamrim, and when we engage in any meditation actually, we are performing a mental action that is the main cause of our experiencing peace. The meditation makes our mind calm, makes our mind peaceful. So probably we have some understanding of this. What we want to do with meditation, the Lamrim meditations, is transform our mind in such a way that we have understandings in our mind that enable us to have a calm and peaceful mind more and more of the time, eventually all of the time. So we emphasize these Lamrim meditations. So we all want to be happy. All the time, even in our dreams. How can we do this? We can do this through training in meditation, because meditation makes our mind become peaceful. And when our mind is peaceful, we're happy all the time, even if our external conditions are poor. So, real happiness is peace of mind, isn't it? Even if externally we don't have much wealth, we don't have many material things, if we have peace of mind, that's priceless. It's that peace of mind that is the real cause of our happiness. On the other hand, when our mind is not peaceful, we're not happy, even if our external conditions are excellent. So we only have to look around our world, don't we, to see how many people have such incredible external conditions, so much material wealth, so much fame, reputation, these kind of things. And yet, many people who possess these things are not happy because they don't have the main cause of happiness. They don't have inner peace, peace of mind. So it doesn't matter if we have amazing external conditions, if we lack the main cause of happiness, inner peace, we can't actually enjoy any of them. So we can understand this by our own experience. We can understand it by looking in the world around us. So since the actual method to make our mind peaceful, to have peace of mind, is training in meditation, we should apply effort to this training. When we meditate, we're performing an action or karma, mental action, that causes us to experience peace of mind in the future. And the main purpose of Lamrim meditations is to transform our mind into the path to enlightenment by bringing about the deepest level of inner transformation, deep realizations. Every time we meditate on the stages of the path to enlightenment, we are establishing in our mind that pathway. So through training our mind in Lamrim meditations, we can free ourselves permanently from all the sufferings of this life and of our countless future lives. And we can attain the supreme happiness of enlightenment, as Buddha did, as Buddha showed. So Lamrim meditations, these meditations on the stages of the path to enlightenment, make our mind familiar with understandings that bring us inner peace. Understanding I may die today will make us peaceful. It will make us happy. It will make every moment of our life joyful. Developing love, compassion will make our mind peaceful, make our mind joyful. So this presentation of Lamrim is explained in this book, Modern Buddhism, and in other Lamrim texts. And as Kadampas, we meditate every day on the stages of the path to enlightenment. In our prayer practices, we have a prayer, in fact, that's called the Prayer of the Stages of the Path. And when we recite this prayer, it's like a series of mini meditations, minds that we pass through that are creating an inner pathway to enlightenment, a mental path, inner path to enlightenment, one step at a time. So what I thought might be nice for us to do is to mentally step through, like mentally go along that pathway to enlightenment together. So if you'd like to settle yourselves, I'll guide us through each of the steps to enlightenment, each of the stages of the path, just very briefly. It's just like we're just touching on each one of them so that we have this pathway in our mind. And then, like any pathway, the more we go down it, the more well-trodden it becomes, the easier it is to traverse. So we can go down this pathway once, and then again and again, repeat every day if we wish, until the path to enlightenment is clear in our mind. Okay, so We can begin by recognizing that at the moment we have a human life. Not only do we have a human life, we have what Buddha called a precious human life. A life that gives us the very best opportunity for spiritual development. A life in which we can enter, make progress on, and complete the path to enlightenment, if we wish. So although we have such a life, and we have an opportunity to make progress on and complete the path to enlightenment, become an enlightened person ourselves. This opportunity is time limited. Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. We may die today. If we die today, we can ask ourselves, where will I be tomorrow? At present, we have no control over our rebirth. It's quite possible we could find ourselves reborn in the lower realms. We need to protect ourselves from falling. We can gain this protection through seeking refuge in Buddha, his teachings, the Dhamma, and in Sangha. Particularly through living our life in accordance with the law of karma, we protect ourselves from falling into the lower realms. Through living our life in accordance with karma, understanding that from non-virtuous actions comes suffering, and from virtuous actions comes happiness. We can protect ourselves from lower rebirth in the future. Create the causes for another human life. we can ask ourselves, is this the best I can hope for? Even in our human life, we experience so much suffering. The Buddha said, you should know sufferings. The sufferings of all our lives in samsara. Temporary liberation from particular sufferings is not good enough. We need permanent liberation from all suffering. So we recognize that even a human life is a life in which we'll experience suffering. And we understand that that suffering comes from the delusions in our mind, particularly from self-grasping ignorance. Through practicing moral discipline, concentration, and wisdom, we can free ourselves from self-grasping ignorance, attain personal liberation from suffering. I think this is what I want. We then ask ourselves, am I the only one? How can I seek my own freedom while others experience suffering? All living beings, my kind mothers, experience suffering and problems. They long for freedom. They wish for pure happiness, but they cannot attain it. With our mind abiding in love and compassion for all living beings, we determine to become ourselves a liberator. We think I must attain enlightenment so that I can free other living beings from their suffering, guide them to pure and everlasting happiness. With this motivation, we then practice the 6 perfections: giving, moral discipline, patience, effort, concentration, and wisdom. Particularly, we emphasize the wisdom, realizing the true nature of things, wisdom realizing emptiness or selflessness. We realize emptiness first with our gross mind, and then through entering the paths of Tantra, manifesting our very subtle mind, we realize emptiness directly. Eliminate completely all the causes of suffering in our mind and become an enlightened person. We can imagine what it will be like when we become an enlightened being. We can think, I will possess every good quality. I'll be free from all faults, all sufferings, every kind of hindrance. I'll have the perfect ability to help other living beings. My emanations will be as numerous as living beings, and I will use them for the benefit of all. And just as there is one moon shining in the sky, whose reflections fill all lakes and waters of the world, when I become enlightened, my emanations will cover and protect all living beings. So we allow ourselves to imagine being such a person, free from all faults, experiencing pure and everlasting happiness, being able to protect and benefit all living beings. And then we can relax our concentration. So just very briefly, we've stepped through the stages of the path to enlightenment. And if we repeat this many times, this path, this mental path, inner path, will become very familiar, well-trodden. And eventually we'll be guided along it to the destination of enlightenment. So this practice of Lamrim is very important because everyone needs to cultivate peaceful states of mind. Now, through listening to, reading, meditating on Lamrim, we learn how to control our mind and always keep a good motivation in our heart. This makes our daily actions pure and meaningful. By controlling our mind, we can solve our daily problems and gradually improve our daily practice of Lamrim. We can advance from our present stage to the stage of a bodhisattva, a person whose wish is to liberate all living beings and who wishes to attain enlightenment so that he can help and protect everyone. By progressing further, we can become a fully enlightened being. This is the essential meaning of our human life. Such a great attainment will be the result of our Lamrim practice. So this journey of Lamrim, we can make our journey. This story can become our story. So this is what I was wanting to share with you this evening. I hope that there is something that you've heard or understood which you find helpful and meaningful and can take away and put into practice. If you would like to be able to step through these meditations yourself, the Lamrim meditations, they're all contained in this book, Modern Buddhism. And at the back of the room, there are these little cards. So Venerable Geshe Kelsang, my teacher, wishes everyone to have the opportunity to practice every stage of the path to enlightenment, the stages of Sutra and of Tantra. And so in this book, Modern Buddhism, he's condensed all of these stages into this one book, Sutra and Tantra in one book, quite extraordinary. And this little card tells you how to receive this book as a free ebook. So if you would like to, then you can take one of those and receive Modern Buddhism as a free ebook. So those are at the back of the room and just outside on the table if you'd like to take one of those on your way out. There's also this card, which is for a book called How to Transform Your Life, which expands on certain aspects of Lamrim teachings, and that's also available as a free ebook. So these two are gifts to anyone who would like to accept them from my teacher, Venerable Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. So if you'd like to take them away, you're very welcome to do so. All right, so I think time is up. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Yeah, this lady. Did you want to? Oh, I see, sorry. Microphone's at the back at the moment. Sorry.
Oh,
that's wonderful. I'm delighted.
What was I doing?
Thank you.
I was just wondering, I did read about briefly in Tibetan Buddhism of the medicine Buddha. Could you talk about that, please, Venerable?
So you're asking about medicine Buddha?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so there are, medicine Buddha is an enlightened being, and he's a Buddha doctor. And within, certainly in our tradition, we have a number of practices that we do in conjunction with medicine Buddha, relying on medicine Buddha to help us cure inner and outer sickness. So we can learn these practices over time and engage in them to cure outer sickness, and also the inner sickness of our delusions. So I hope that helps a little.
So is that Buddha the same as Gautama Buddha?
Ah, okay. So, Buddhas, there are many people have attained enlightenment, and Buddha manifests in different forms to help with particular problems. So, all the Buddhas manifest as medicine Buddha to help particularly cure these inner and outer sicknesses that we have.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's any. Are there any other questions? There's microphones being held there. So, one more. Sorry, at the front. Thank you.
Kelsang Ani, thanks for the wonderful talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, you're saying thought transformation, transforming our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Today you're talking about through Lamrim meditation.
Yes.
Yeah. What's the difference between this thought transformation from through Lamrim meditation and Lojong? No?
Ah, okay.
Yeah, thought transformation from changing your thinking. No?
Yeah.
What's
okay.
the difference?
So, the question is, what are the differences between Lamrim and Lojong?
Yeah.
So, Lamrim is like a storehouse. It's like if you imagine if you have if you build a storehouse, and you can then store many things in that storehouse. So if you have a storehouse, for example, and somebody gives you a grain of rice or some rice, but you don't know necessarily don't have any use for that rice at that particular time, if you have a storehouse built, you can put it in there. So Lamrim is like a storehouse in which we can store all of Buddha's teachings. And the Lojong teachings are held within the storehouse of Lamrim. So they're within the Lamrim teachings.
So Lojong is the practical one, isn't it?
Lojong is definitely very practical, training the mind. But Lamrim also is very practical. These Lamrim meditations enable us to effect these transformations in our mind. And the Lojong teachings are like expanding on certain aspects of Lamrim, like unpacking certain steps along the path.
Sorry, if can I ask? Yeah, okay, yeah. Sorry, I think you're the right one to ask. Yeah. You know, what came to my mind is the Buddha was saying, okay, our mind is the forerunner of all states. The mind is the forerunner of all states, okay? So if you have good thinking, positive thinking, you have good feeling.
Yeah.
Negative thinking, you feel bad, I think, okay? Yeah. The thing is, this thing is now, okay, mind over matter, mind is for states, okay? The states now, is the state our feelings?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Sorry, the Buddha was saying the mind is a forerunner of all states. All states, okay? So if the states are our feelings, isn't it? The suffering, if you think back, the state is our feelings, the emotion,
Yes.
Okay, and which you can label it like anxiety, stress, depression, and all these things, isn't it?
So feelings are part of our mind.
Yeah, the mind forerunner of all states. So the mind affecting the feeling, the emotions, all these things.
Yes.
And then to overcome this, first thing is through meditation.
Yeah.
And the other one is through changing our thinking.
That's
putting the positive thoughts to drown the negative thinking.
That's right. Meditation is the method by which we actually effect that change in our way of thinking. That's what the Lamrim meditations do, and the Lojong meditations.
Yes,
in meditation, we are changing our way of thinking. Like we're contemplating, we're rolling over ideas in our mind, coming to conclusions that we then hold and become used to thinking. So like, for example, in the Lojong meditations on love, then we learn how to view every living being as kind to us, which is not what we normally think. But there's some special ways of thinking that Buddha gives us to enable us to view every living being as kind. So we think those through in the meditation, like in contemplation, so that we get used to thinking in those new ways, arrive at the conclusion all living beings are tremendously kind to me. We have this loving feeling in our heart. We sit with that loving feeling. That contemplation and then that placement meditation, holding that thought of love, is what actually affects the transformation or the change in our mind. And that changes how we feel about everything, of course. Our feelings are part of our mind.
I know what you mean.
Does that make sense?
And sense.
Yeah.
Apart from these two, can you think of any more things to transform the mind? From your experience, apart from meditation and changing our thinking, can you think of other more things to?
Well, I think the most effective way of changing
I think there's two things. It comes back to these two things.
That's right. The most effective way is through meditation. Meditation is what changes our mind. Nothing else really does in a positive, systematic way. It's a method to effect that change, isn't it?
The other thing is we have to also respect. Some people they might find meditation helpful.
Yeah.
Some people might find it the other way. Like changing the thinking. So like is the Buddha when he sees different people, he teaches the Dhamma. He twists. He like to different ways to suit the people.
That's
thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't make a distinction as such between transforming our mind and meditation. Meditation is a method to enable us to transform our mind. That's the way we practice, is that we use meditation as a tool to effect those transformations, to change our human nature, if you like, from bad to good. No. So meditation's like a tool that does that.
Yeah,
rather than it being a sort of separate thing.
Yeah.
That's what the Lamrim meditations and the Lojong meditations do.
Sorry, I'm just asking one more thing. Yeah. The other thing is, they say that when you have that, say you have a negative, you experience a difficult situation, okay? Yeah. You can't change the situation. And the thinking, the only way to change the thinking is to put in good thoughts, to drown the negative thoughts. That's the only way. That's
we
what
have
you think?
To change our mind. Like if we're encountering a situation we find difficult, this is a bad situation, then to change the way that we view that situation, we need to change our mind.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I say drown out, because I think we need to change our mind in a way that feels authentic.
Yeah, where it feels like you can feel much better.
That's right.
Yeah. And over the times, it goes off,
Yeah.
Through impermanence, it goes off itself.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be careful not to simply be telling ourselves to think positive when we don't really believe it. We don't really feel it in our heart. So that's why with the meditations, the Lamrim meditations in particular, we think things through and it resolves any objections that we have in our minds, so that instead of just thinking positive, we actually feel and are positive from the depths of our heart. So I think it's important that whatever transformations we make, we try to ensure that they're authentic and that they're coming from our heart, rather than just stuff that we know in our head.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So through meditation, then we are able to do that, effect deep, authentic inner transformations in our way of thinking, relating to the world around us, so that we can stay positive and peaceful more and more of the time, eventually, all of the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay. Thank you all very much for your attention, for coming this evening and letting me have the opportunity to talk to you. So thank you.